Yay! Alright, YouTube has done its thing. I think you guys got like the end of my timing countdown, but welcome to Tuesday, y'all. So, while we let some folks show up, let me briefly talk about the kind of the premise for today, right? So, for those that haven't been watching the channel for a really long time, I'm going to adjust my mic just a touch. Stay. Good microphone. Okay. For those that have been watching the channel for a really long time, 2 years ago now, year and a half ago, you had a really bad power outage. And that was kind of like my first major fish emergency since I got back into the hobby and moved into my current home. Which, you know, I moved into this place before I got back into the hobby, but not by much. And it went 55 hours without power. And I didn't lose any fish. So, kind of a testament to how tough fish can be, but more importantly, how some really small measures can go a long way. Now, certain fish, like saltwater and stuff, they're way more finicky. It's a lot harder. Yeah. It's a little easier in freshwater, but we're going to talk about a couple of different things. Because, like, right now, the real reason for this is basically the whole West Coast, but especially Oregon and Washington are dealing with either, depending on what side of the state you're on. So if you're on the eastern side of the state, you're dealing with some really bad wildfires, right? I mean, there's some scary stuff. There's actually a small, like, I say small, I mean, his channel's like 3 times the size of mine, but in the grand scheme of things, anything less than 100,000 subscribers is technically small on YouTube. There's a smaller YouTuber who's technically in Eastern Oregon, but he's, I know him because he's like a fellow Seahawks fan, and I know him by his icon in his channel called Inventory King, which that name seems really weird for a fish channel, but that's his channel. And he's in Eastern Oregon, and he had to evacuate his home. And he's staying like 45 minutes away from his home, but he drives back, I think it's like twice a day or once a day, to basically do certain things to help keep his fish safe, because the wildfires are getting so close to his home that the local officials forced him to evacuate. And if you watch like his most recent video, which I think he loaded up 2 days ago or something like that, the sky is literally like orangish yellow because of the light from, you know, these huge wildfires combined with all the smoke and stuff that's in the air. It is doing like these weird crazy things to the sky, and it's really eerie to see, right? And like they've cut the power off to his house because there's a danger with wildfires and power running that can make fires worse. So this poor guy is in like the brunt of it. And I was watching his video, and the first thing that popped in my mind is like, I should really talk about stuff like this, because being prepared, wildfires is a lot harder, don't get me wrong, but being prepared for some kind of issue, like a power outage, just having those things around will make going through it so much easier, because you're not like panic doing things, right? So let's talk about the generics. What matters the most to a majority of our fish? Now, there's some small edge cases here, like discus or German blue rams, where they need to be really warm, right? We're not talking like they can handle the 70s. And they could really handle the 60s if they have to, okay? But they really like to be in the low 70s, like that kind of 72, 74 range, or even 68 to 70 in some fish. It's a lot easier to just not worry about heat in those tanks for a while, especially if it's the summer, because in the summer, we're naturally, our homes are going to be warmer. You probably don't need heat so much. You need air. Air is what matters. Now, if we're in the winter, which is when I had a power outage, now heat matters. And if you have like natural gas that powers some of the heat in your home, like your water heater or something like that, there's some other tricks you can do that really help you a lot. I'm lucky in that my water heater is gas-based, so I had warm water while I didn't have power. but I only had so much, and I didn't want to push it too far just because I can't be certain with the storms that we were having when I had my power outage how much warm water I'm going to have at a time and for how long. So I wasn't doing big water changes. So let's talk about the first thing, air, right? There's a lot of companies that do this now, and you know, the most common one for a battery operated air pump, right, are these like little marina ones, which, you know, if you watch Aquarium Co-op, Corey's talked forever about these things. They're great. This is actually, I have like 10 of these that I bought when I lost power, and you know, they do wonders just because you just slap some, I think it's C or D batteries into it, and they go for quite a while on those batteries. They're a little loud, but you know what? One of these is good enough for a surprisingly large tank to provide enough oxygen to keep your fish safe. Because like I had one of these on the big Guppy Mansion, I had one on my big rainbow tanks. You know, all my 40 breeders basically had one, unless they were like super heavy plants and they were by a window where they were getting light through the day, so that they were photosynthesizing, right? Plenty of oxygen, not an issue. I'll give you guys a link on Amazon just in case, like, because there's a lot of different ones now. They even have rechargeable ones that I think use like USB-C, like your cell phone will. And yes, Federal Trade Commission, I'll do the disclaimer, anything purchased through an Amazon link gives a commission to the channel because I'm an Amazon affiliate. Hope you're happy. Don't sue me or fine me. I don't make enough money for that. I might make 2 pennies if you buy something. Amazon commissions are horrible, but that's not the point, right? And you'll note if you look at that, there's some that are rechargeable. I personally have the Marinas just because they're what I could buy locally, and they run off of batteries as opposed to having to be charged. And when your whole house doesn't have power, batteries are the only thing you've got, right? So that's air, right? Air is probably the most important thing. The second most important thing is, depending on the type of fish you're keeping or the time of year, is going to be heat. And there's a couple different tricks we can do to keep heat out, okay? Then this is most common in power outages, right? In smoky conditions, you probably don't need heat, but we'll talk about that in a sec, right? Like what I'm dealing with right now, if I didn't have certain things, I would need to be looking into some options. So like emergency blankets. Have you guys familiar with those? They're like here, I'll give you an Amazon link on those too. But like those little thermal blankets that basically just look like aluminum foil in a really tiny thin sheet, right? I used these when I had my power outage, and I just draped them over the tank, right? And I didn't wrap the whole tank, although if you really want to go, great, you wrap the whole tank. And then, basically, but I like them at the top because it helps hold that little bit of heat in, and where you lose most of the heat is through the top of the tank, especially in glass tanks. So this is a way to hold a little extra heat in, and you can wrap the whole tank. You could use big, thick blankets if you have lots of heavy, like winter blankets is a good thing. I can remember as a kid, we only had like 2 tanks that had to be heated in my house when I was a kid, and we had lost power a couple winters in a row. I remember this really distinctly. I think it was like 8 or 9, and we had these big, heavy blankets. A couple of them were like that faux mink. You know what I'm talking about? They're not actually mink, but they have that fake appearance like that. And then some heavy wool blankets, and we just wrap those around the tanks to insulate them, to help keep them warm. So that's like another option. Thermal blankets are a good one because they're cheap, they're thin, they cost like nothing. If you don't want to have giant heavy winter blankets like lying around for your fish tank, right? If you're only looking at your fish tank supplies, this is a good option. The other way that you can do this that I did as well, so I did this in addition, and this got mentioned in chat too, so this is another option. Let me first do this one, is to take some like ice melt, and you can basically put it in a heat bottle, right? So you just get like a water bottle and you fill it with that. It produces heat for a while and you just drop it in your tank. What I did is I would take, I went to a local Fred Meyer. You can go to any grocery store, right? But the Fred Meyer's just the thing that was closest to my house. I bought a big rack of water bottles. I emptied all the water out of it. And then I poured the hottest hot water I could get out of my tap because I'm on gas, right? So if you can get hot water from gas, you have gas, water heater or whatever. I got the water as hot as I could get it out of the tap, filled the bottles, and then would put those little water bottles in my tanks. And I would do like, in something that was like 100 gallons plus, I'd put like 3 or 4 water bottles. And, in a 40-gallon breeder, I'd put 2. And they basically act as like temporary floating heaters. And I basically, during the power outage, I took time off work and I stayed at home so that I could basically rotate my water bottles. I think it was 3 times a day where I was refilling them with hot water to produce like these small floating heaters in my tank. And then draping the blankets over them to help hold some of that in. And you could look at like if you have, say, 72-hour heat packs or 24-hour heat packs like we use in shipping. 72 hours are the better ones. And this kind of got mentioned in chat by Patrick's Aquatics. Literally, like, staple those bad boys. I mean, not staple, but tape. You tape them to the glass and then wrap your insulation around it, and it will help heat your tank, right? So this is like, these are a couple different ways you can heat them. I'm curious if Amazon's got like 72-hour heat packs. One sec. I would assume they do, but just in case you like need to, if you're a person like me who needs to like see stuff to remember what the heck you're talking about, I'm one of those people. I'm super visual. But you use these typically when you're shipping fish. In this case, there you go. But yeah, they have a little strip on the back just for reference that needs to be exposed to air. They'll have like a little stripe, keep as much of that exposed to air as possible. That helps keep them warm. And they last, I mean, they really do keep a very good temperature for 72 hours. That's a lot of time in a power outage. Typically, most of our power outages aren't that long. Now, if you're in a more rural area where if you lose power, you're going to lose power for like a week, this is actually probably the best option, is have a bunch of these heat packs lying around. And you can get, them in bulk pretty cheap in the grand scheme of things. And they last until you activate them. So, not bad. It's basically once they're unsealed and exposed to oxygen, they'll start slowly heating up. They take, it's like really an hour to get to their proper temperature, and then they're warm for 72 hours. So that's super, super handy. Now, if we don't need to heat a tank, and we don't have power loss, maybe we're in a condition like we are in the West Coast right now where there's tons of smoke. Like, I don't know if you guys have seen pictures of Seattle in the last couple days, but you can't, like, see. You can't see the Space Needle in some of the skyscrapers. There's so much smoke in the sky. Your visibility is, like, half a mile, which, if you think about it, that's nothing for visibility, right? So, what can you do if you don't have, like, whole house heat or air? So if you have like a central air system that's got filters in it, the easiest thing to do in that case is keep all your doors and windows shut, get a brand new filter in there, and get yourself a nice one. And for those who aren't familiar with a lot of these filters, they have a system called MERV, MERV. I can't remember exactly what it stands for, but basically the higher the rating, the more stuff it filters out. It's basically the finer the filtration. So if we think about it like in sponge filters, a MERV 8 is like a 20 ppi coarse sponge filter, where a MERV like 12 or 11 or 13, which is some of the highest you're usually going to see typically, commercially speaking, is more like a 50 or 60 ppi sponge, right? It's nice and fine. It pulls a lot out of the air. Just get a new filter, get a really high like MERV rating. There you go. Minimum efficiency reporting values. Thank you, Jeff Chambers, is what MERV stands for. Or it's just a nickname for a person, But that, you just replace those. Now, if you don't have central air, like you got baseboard heating or You use like one of those units, say in a fish room, like Corey does, for example, right? Where it heats and cools by pulling air in and out of the building, right? Then what you want to do is a little kind of DIY trick. You can get one of those big box fans. You know, those big ugly white box fans cost like $15. And go get one of those air filters and strap it to the front. Don't strap it to the back where the air comes in. That will reduce airflow. Strap it to the front so that it's pushing air through the filter. And then, in that case, what I would look at is this, like, I want to point you to a really specific type of air filter. You can do this with any of them. If you find any of the ones that say that they're specifically for cigarette smoke, this is like your best option. There's a brand out there called AirX, which they make a couple different ones. Like they have ones for allergens, and then they have this one, the health one, which I've linked in chat. And I'll come back after for those on the replay, and I'll put some links down in the description for you, or I'll pin a comment, one of the two. These are really good because basically it's like a HEPA grade filter that you can put into your air system. And in the case of this, what I would do is if you have all your fish tanks in one room, get a big box fan, put it on high, right? Strap one of these to the front, because it's only like a 1-inch filter. It's not very thick, so it'll reduce a little bit of airflow, but not a lot. And just let it sit in your fish room. And that way, what it's doing is it's filtering all the air in your fish room so that any of your air pumps that go into your tanks are putting cleaner air into your tanks. And if you have, like I said, if you have whole house filtration because you have a central air system, just get a similar really nice quality filter, put it in, even if it's temporary, or get a brand new filter. Make sure you got a just good clean filter to pull as much stuff out as possible. Jam that bad boy in there. You're good, right? Because really all you want to make sure is that none of the potential hazardous stuff that's in the air is being pumped into your water. And all our air pumps are doing is they're pulling the air from in their environment, right? It's not like they've got really high-grade filters that are going to protect you. So this is like kind of the last line of defense. Another thing that I will caution you, and I'll tell you this in my story, what I did recently, other than replace the filter in my house. I have a brand new filter running right now. As soon as the wildfires started getting pretty nasty and smoke started rolling into my neighborhood, slammed a new one in there. And I've got those specific ones that I linked. I have them on the way because they take a little longer to ship. So that basically as soon as that's passed, I can take whatever filter I was running and just call it dead and put a brand new filter in and help that keep cleaning the air in the house. The other thing you might look at is calling, if you're on a city water of any form, and this is kind of the last tip I'm going to give you, call your water company. In the case of something like wildfires were really bad, like in a bunch of my family lives on the eastern side of the state, in Yakima and Wenatchee, Washington, respectively. They have ash falling like snow out there. Okay? And there has been tiny amounts of ash coming down even out here in the Seattle area. So the worry there, and my paranoia, right, because I've got a lot of tanks full of rainbow fish. Rainbow fish aren't cheap. We know this. And a few other things I've been hiding and not telling you all about that you'll get to find out soon that are kind of expensive. A new project I haven't told you all about on purpose. Call your water company and find out whether or not your water system where they store the water is at any risk. And if it is, what they're doing to your water to account for it. So an example, I called my water company. That's, they are a smaller company, but they get most of their water from Seattle's, like, big, which is Seattle Public Utilities, okay? But they have their own holding facilities locally near my house, because I live in a suburb that's, like 20 minutes south or so of Seattle. So I called them at first, and they were like, well, I'll just let you know that all of our containment where we hold all of our water is covered. So ash can't fall into our containment units. However, we do get water from Seattle Public Utilities, and theirs are stored in big lakes in certain places. They're basically man-made lakes that are built for water storage. So we'll check with them and get back to you. So they got back to me, right? And they felt, thankfully they were like really good about this. And a water quality engineer for Seattle Public Utilities got back to me and said, hey, just so you know, the what we're seeing so far in all of our measurements is basically that where our water is located, there is no measurable difference in the water quality, because they continually monitor their water, right? So at the moment, because there's no measurable difference in the water, there's so little as far as like parts per million is concerned, they don't have to do any additives, because the lake is millions and millions and millions of gallons of water, and what little ash is falling into it is such a small, minuscule amount, it can't affect that much water. They're like, but if it, for some reason, gets to the point of where it becomes measurable and we need to take any action, we will contact you again and let you know. Because I sent an email specifically at first, and they called me and we went back and forth on the phone. And the email basically specified, like, hey, you know, I'm asking these questions for a reason. I'm an aquarist, and several of my friends in the area were all aquarists. We all keep thousands of dollars worth of animals, so we care a lot about the water. And Seattle has this really, really good water. There's barely nothing in it, so small differences in the amount of stuff in the water can make a huge difference on the animal lives that might not affect humans. So this matters a lot to me, because if something goes haywire and I start losing fish, I'm going to be really, really angry. Right? So basically I had to kind of put it on them, because it's happened in the past where stuff has happened to the water in the Seattle area, and people have written the water company telling them, like, hey, you didn't warn us. I know a guy who's a member of the Greater Seattle Aquarium Society. He lost, I think it was like $6,000 or $7,000 worth of breeding discus. Just his breeding fish, not his fry and stuff. The water company reimbursed him. They wrote him a check because they didn't want to get sued. Right? Because in theory, there is a potential that he could sue. Now, hopefully you do things in good faith, which is why I reached out ahead of time, because I've got some tanks that are due for water changes, and it happened to be like their water change window came in as all the smoke got here, and as the ash has been starting to fall in certain places. So I contacted them, and thankfully, like, my water company is super responsive. Now, if you're in a well water, you really don't have to worry about it, right? And yeah, I heard chat who's like, wow, that's crazy, and one person, that hurts. Yes, losing your fish hurts, which is why I contacted them ahead of time, because if it comes down to it, I'm not going to do water changes. I'll deal with water getting low and waiting the extra like week until we get proper rainfall and the water cleans up. Or even potentially going out and buying enough bottled water or some kind of makeshift filter in order to make sure that I can at least top off with clean water. But as I said, like they said, like, there's no measurable difference yet, so don't worry about it. It's like, okay, cool, that's all I need to know. And if we do see a measurable difference, we will contact you. They literally put me on a list of people they have to contact if something changes while this is going on, which feels very special. But it's also because I let them know that, like, I'm literally informing hundreds of people in the Seattle area who are all a part of one aquarium club. Right, so basically, I'm acting as a front line for all of the Greater Seattle Aquarium Society, and have literally been reporting back to them through our mailing list type thing that we have, which is kind of cool. Now, if you have RO water and you have an RO unit, you don't have to worry about any of this. It just does it for you, or like a whole house filter or anything like that. But that's kind of I want to get the topic stuff out of there. A little bit of interacting with chat, but just some tips about how to deal with disaster type scenarios to actually make it so your fish can live. Like I said, I've gone with that power for 55 hours. No issues. Right? The biggest thing you can look at as a potential problem is if you don't have moving water because of power for a while, almost guaranteed your bacterial colonies in your filters are going to die. Right? Now, if they sit in the tank naturally, like your sponge filters, you don't need to worry about them. Right? Because if you have air moving, there's some amount of moving water. But like your canister filters, your hang on the backs, before you get your power back on, go clean all of your filters. Clean them all. Because there's a potential that anything that's left in there will die, and you could potentially be pushing a bunch of gunk into your water and causing an ammonia spike or some other issue. So make sure they're clean. If you have sponge filters, don't worry about it, which this is probably the best PSA to say have a sponge filter somewhere in almost every tank, or a sponge on the intake, because that can act as your active bacteria colony in case of emergency. Because the smallest amount of water flow, that bacteria colony is still there, it's still working. You just put your little air stone on your battery operated air pump right by that, or into your sponge filter, even better. Now you have filtration and air. Bingo. Perfect, right? Great combo stuff. So, with that being said, we'll go to the rest of the 35-ish minutes of the stream of just active Q&A. And if you guys do have questions about, like, emergency stuff or what have you, anything, really doesn't matter. Just do @BentleyPasco in chat. Makes it lights up, makes it nice and easy for me to see it, make sure I don't miss it. And we'll go from there, all right? And there's a couple questions in here. Lots of people, like, thank you all for showing up. It's nice to see so many people on a Tuesday night. I love getting to hang out with all y'all. Trey, who's from Washington, knows what Eastern Washington is like, from Tri-Cities, which I used to, when I was younger and before, like, having several injuries to my legs, I used to do a softball tournament once a year in the Tri-Cities, specifically in Kennewick, Washington, in the middle of the summer. And I can remember playing a quarterfinal game. My team tended to be pretty good. I was not the best player on my team, but I was the most consistent hitter. I'm not a power hitter. I was a contact hitter. So I got on base a lot, but basically only ever singles and, like, doubles. Never anything more than that. But I remember playing a game in 123 degree temperature. That was not fun. I was very, very sunburnt at the end of the tournament. I had gone through more Gatorade than I think any human should have to in a day. Oh, Brian's dealing with a bunch of smoke over in Michigan, too. I mean, yeah, it's the wildfire time of the year. It gets really bad in Eastern Washington. It's so dry. And Eastern Oregon, too. What a lot of people don't know is that, like, Eastern Oregon, for example, one of their primary agricultural exports, it might be their primary one, is actually grass seed. So, like, the way that you get grass is from grass seed, right? Oregon grows most of it. Well, those big grass fields are giant dry grass fields right now. So if fire hits them, it's just game over. It spreads super fast. Right now, it's not in them, but oh boy. And Sharon Miller is mentioning that Laura had to leave for mandatory evacuation. Oof. Oof, oof, oof. That sucks. That sucks. Like, anytime you have fish and you have to evacuate, that's about the worst. Krager's Fish has this really good example here. So, for heat, you get a 50-pound bag of calcium chloride from your local ready-mix concrete plant, which most places are going to have some kind of concrete yard or house somewhere where you can get concrete mix. Fill a 32-ounce Gatorade bottle, 1/4 full with the calcium chloride. Add water. Instant heat. Yes. When water hits calcium chloride, it's a very interesting reaction that causes heat. And it lasts for... I mean, a 32-ounce bottle with 1/4 of it full, that's going to last quite a while. So that's another way to get heat if you don't have, like, gas heating and you're out of power, if you need to heat your tanks. That's a great thing there. Have just a bag lying around just in case. Another fantastic tip. All right. I'm going to zip back down so I can actually get questions. Oh, BYZ, thanks for the super chat, man. Got turquoise from Aquabid. Can you wreck a green bow? Well, if you want a green rainbow, like the best is the Wanamensis. So that's Glossolepis Wanamensis, the Emerald Rainbow. And if you are going to buy some, the best seller I know who's readily selling right now is Aquasphere Rainbow Fish. Sometimes I think that's what he's permanently changed his name to. It used to be Aquasphere Discus. That's a gentleman by the name of Ricardo. That's where I got mine, and his come from a specific line that's like basically the best line in the United States. They come from a really well-known rainbow guy who's become mostly a Pseudomagil guy lately. I haven't seen him sell any of his Wanamensis line for a while. Otherwise, I would suggest him as well. But that's Ricardo's got really, really nice ones. They're absolutely beautiful fish. That's where I would look. Oh, you got your turquoise from Ricardo today. There you go. You know exactly who I'm talking about. Yeah. I would actually just like message Ricardo directly and just let him know, like, hey, I want to pick up some Wanamensis. He might work with you outside of Aquabid. And then Kelly Foreman, I know, has been mailing me, got some turquoise and Wanamensis from Ricardo as well. Look, Ricardo's a really awesome dude and a very good breeder. He's got a small YouTube channel too, where you can see some of his fish, and it's kind of nice. He puts them up every once in a while. You'll see like his breeders or some of his, whatever stock he's raised up that isn't the babies he's selling. But he does really good shipping, pretty good pricing too. If you can work with him directly, you can get some pretty good pricing as well outside of like having to bid on stuff on Aquabid, right? Okay, but yeah, no, I mean, if you got stuff from Ricardo, you already know he's got great fish. Wanamensis are fantastic. And because they're a Glossolepis species and not a Melanitania, a little less likely to crossbreed in a tank, so you could potentially have both fish breeding. Although if you want to breed them, just pull a male and a couple females out and put them in a separate tank. Like put them in a 20-gallon with a couple mops for a week, and then put them back in their tank and let the mop hatch in that same tank. You'll be fine. So Stephen P. Bentley, I might be trying to breed Bozeman in the next few months. If a 29 is big enough for a grow-out tank. That should have been, is a 29 big enough? And if, don't break my heart. Actually, yeah, 29 is perfectly fine for a grow-out tank. You can grow them out to quite a size. Like my wild-caught Rubro striata are currently in a 29-gallon. And they're doing fine. Like, should I give them more room? Yes. Yes, but they're basically the only fish in that tank. So it's just them, like 2 green dragon bristlenose that aren't very big, and like 1 SAE is all that lives in that tank. So they just school around together and they're fine. But yeah, no, 29's fine, especially to raise them. What I would do is, the bigger the tank, the faster they'll grow. So putting them in a 29 will get them to grow to like the 2-inch range relatively quick. And then if you want to get them to that like 3.5 inch size, where they get that really nice adult color and they're really, really stellar looking, you might look at a 40 breeder or wherever the parents are. Once they get to like 2 inches, the parents should leave them alone, so you can move them in with the parents and just start the next batch or whatever you plan on doing. But yeah, 29 is perfectly fine. Oh man, you're getting smoke all the way from over here in Michigan? Jeez, crazy. That's man, it's bad. I mean, it's like, it looks like a apocalyptic film outside my house right now. The smoke is so bad, and it was 2 days ago it registered as the worst air condition, which is hazardous, and right now it's just like very unhealthy. It's like, ugh. So beyond the fact that like I was wearing a mask for, I have to wear a mask in Washington State because of all the stuff with human malware, man, wearing a mask doesn't bug me. Whatever. I've got this like homemade cloth one that's got like the whole Mario Brothers cast on it, and it's nerdy and it's fun, and it doesn't bug me that much. The only thing that sucks is like, when I wear a mask, you got the heat of your natural breath, and that makes my nose run. So, like, I feel like I have like the light sniffles at all times because I've been wearing a mask. But other than that, whatever. It doesn't. Just stay safe. Yeah, if you guys are in Washington, Oregon, California, you got a lot of smoke. Man, just wear something. Don't breathe all that garbage in. Don't breathe it in. It's terrible for you. And the thing is, like, it's not about long. It's not like you're gonna get cancer. I mean, you could, but it's not as likely to say like smoking cigarettes. But what you could run into is that much like smoke can irritate your lungs. And that irritation can lead to either A, an infection, or B, some kind of viral type issue like bronchitis. But like upper respiratory infections, I had one for a while. It took 2 months to get it to clear out, to where I wasn't like coughing gunk out of my lungs still. It sucked. It sucked. So like definitely don't like risk that stuff, because it just, you feel miserable for weeks. It's not fun. But yeah, simple stuff. Yeah, Toledo, Ohio's getting it too. 2,000 miles away. Jeez, yeah. I mean, but that just shows you guys how bad these wildfires are, because they're bad. They're really bad this year, and it's the whole West Coast is the big problem. Whatever. I don't think. Novice Aquarius, your comment required review. I don't think it's that bad, but it's kind of funny. And yeah, if you have asthma, oh boy, I really pity you, because man, that's just kicking you in the teeth. She's just kicking you in the teeth. Kent's Fish, Bentley. I have a 150-gallon plant. I'm assuming that's plant tank. My jungle val not growing. What do you recommend? I use Easy Green and Root Tab Eco-Complete as a substrate. So, I've had issues with val where I'll plant val, and it seems like it's not growing at all for like 2 months. And then out of nowhere, it just goes crazy, and I'll see like 20 new plants, right? The big thing is, like, you feed them at their roots, which you're already doing root tabs, so in theory that should happen. Sometimes it's the amount of light they're getting. They don't need high light, but they like a little bit of light. Like, medium light is usually the best. Kind of sit for val, especially because like really high light, you can actually have issues. And the kind of higher end of low light and into medium light is where you want to sit. If you're in like low light, the plant might spend all its time trying to grow upward as opposed to growing outward. So that's really all I can think of. Like, I've had issues where val just takes its sweet time and then goes insane on me. So it could be that it's almost like a pseudo dormant period. If not, like, there's a potential that you might need some extra trace elements, but I mean, if you're using Easy Green and root tabs, you should have enough trace elements running around. The other thing I could say is, like, you could potentially add Flourish Advance into your mixture, which is something that I know, like, Robert, the manager at the shop, with a certain tank that he was really taking care of for a while, he was using Flourish Advance on top of Easy Green and root tabs to really make sure that his tank stayed super lush. Because it could be the other plants in the tank are more established and they're just beating the val out for its nutrient uptake, so it's not getting quite enough for it to go hog wild on you. I mean, this is kind of spitballing at this point a little bit. What I will say is, you shoot me an email with a couple pictures of your tank, Kent, and I'll just kind of like try and eyeball it and see if I can maybe give a couple extra pieces of advice just in case that what I have said isn't applicable, okay? And my email, I'll put it in chat just in case, but I've mentioned it many times. It's bentley.pasco@gmail.com. Bam. There you go. That's in chat. Feel free to email me. I'm happy to help where I can. I would argue in my case, because once Jungle Val starts going, I can't get rid of it, that I would want my Jungle Val not to be going really, really well so that it stays only where I want it. But it's a great plant. Like a thick area of jungle val in the back of your tank just looks really good. Looks really good. Now, if you can contain it in just that area, that's the tough part. OMG, I found Nemo. Are you buying the 35th anniversary of the game? Which 35th anniversary game? If that's directed at me. There's a few that actually are hitting like the 35 years at this point. Levi S. Anyone know when Bentley is going to release a video on safety Zorb for a planted tank? I actually did that last Saturday. So, the most recent Substrate 101 talks about cat litter. In the title, there's actually safety Zorb in that. And I know it's not direct in there, but I talk a lot about safety Zorb in that particular video. Now, as far as doing a tank with safety Zorb, that's going to have to wait until whenever I can make room for more tanks. Which is to say, whenever I can do my garage, which is probably not until next year. Just being honest, man, human malware has ruined every super secret plan I had and every project I was trying to do. It has been the greatest kick in the teeth for my plans. But yeah, no, safety Zorb is freaking awesome. I talk about it in the cat litter or substrate video. If you're looking for some details, there's also a live stream where I talked about safety Zorb as well. Adam, how long does it take for Bozeman to show their colors? I had 6 of them for about 6 months now. They have some yellow on their whole bodies that I get all females, or have just not colored up yet. Could be both. It depends on the yellow. So if it looks more metallic and less like a almost fluorescent color, right? Very bright, vibrant color. So males have a very bright, vibrant color. Females have a dull, slightly metallic color. The big thing is if the yellow goes all the way up the body, tends to be female. If it goes halfway to 2/3 up the body, tends to be male. It depends on what species of Bozeman is, where it's caught from, like a Tinjo versus Ayumaru versus how it was bred. The kind of bloodline will depend on how long they can take. Some of them take upwards of a year to really get their proper color in. Some with really good bloodlines, you'll have basically little babies that are like 2 inches long that are full color. Like some of the Gary Lang lines are like that, where they'll basically be almost full color at 2 inches if you've like power fed them a lot with a lot of baby brine shrimp. And some of the things is like go get if you find like that, say like that extreme krill flake, or you start feeding frozen brine, any of those that are like a natural color enhancer for reds will help push those colors more as they're growing out. So it kind of just depends. BYZ, if a wholesaler brings in plants and flips them the same day in Florida, are these mostly immersed? They are entirely immersed if they flip them the same day. It typically, any plant you get in is going to be immersed, grown, and it takes a while to convert them ahead of time. Super chat for John Margaret. Need to see the puppers. I'll see what I can do. The big thing is, like, the girl dog is downstairs with my lady, and probably almost being very good and very quiet right now, but I might let him out. He's been shedding like crazy. Woo! And he won't let us use... We'll talk about my dog for a second. That little corgi will not let me use a brush on him. So I can't brush all his undercoat out when he needs to shed it off. So, like, one of the things that I love doing is I'll bring him up on my bed, right? And he'll like, do these little, like, patrol laps on half of my bed. And I'll just lay there with him and pet him. And it's cute as a button, but when he's shedding this much, he basically covers my bed in fur. You know, usually I have my comforter out, and that way it's only my comforter and not, like, my sheets. But when it's like that, it's kind of like, man, I don't want to bring you up until you get groomed, which he gets groomed next week. Man, groomers are booked out here. Like, trying to get your dog groomed with a groomer is a... We called the groomer that we use, and it was like, oh, yeah, I'm booked out for the next 3.5 weeks. My earliest appointment is this. It was like, all right, well, I'll take it, but geez. It's like, sucks. And mostly, like, because groomers can do certain things, it's a lot easier to get him brushed because he kind of gets forced to it. But yeah, I'll see what I can do about the boy. Okay, comment from Streetwise before I go to Brian's thing. It's like, I tuned in your stream 20 minutes ago and instantly went and cleaned my air conditioner. Oh man, it's not. That's funny to me, man. Stephen P. Masks make my face sweat and my beard gets soaked. Yeah, so I will get I get kind of like the humidity from my my breathing naturally, right? I'll feel this like ring right on the edge of my goatee that'll be wet, and that part of my mask will be like ever so lightly wet. You know what I'm talking about? I've just had to get used to it because like I have to wear a mask all day while I'm at work too. Even though I'm plenty far away from most of the people in my office, I have to wear a mask just because it's Microsoft policy for the few of us who are working in office. You have to wear a mask at all times. Whether you're in an office alone, in an open space, it doesn't matter. Unless you are directly eating or drinking and then you immediately put it back on, you have to have a mask on. No matter what. And the only way to get out of that is like you have to have specific doctor's notes and all this stuff. And it's like, if you're going to that level just because you don't want to wear a mask as opposed to like just the, other people's, even if it's other people's mental sanity. Because right now it's just such a crazy time. Like, man, I don't get it. But yeah. Woo! Brian Bentley came across a post talking about using peat moss as a substrate. With your recent videos, do you have any thoughts on using peat moss? So, I wouldn't use peat moss as a substrate unless it's specifically with killifish. I look at peat moss as an additive. So, peat moss is really good at drastically lowering your pH and acidifying your water, right? Because peat bogs are like just acid beds. So if you have like proper Ultim Angels where you really need to have acidified water, or you have a lot of those killifish that need to like lay their eggs in peat, that's where you typically start using peat moss. Lots of tannins, you're going to have like tea-colored water forever, and it really makes your water super acidic if you haven't like seriously soaked it for a long time to get a lot of that out. So I wouldn't, except in rare cases, I would never consider peat moss as a substrate. I would look at it as like an additive, and a lot of people will add like small amounts of peat in a little like a filter media bag or something like that into their filter to help acidify really hard water, right? And to soften up, like if you live in liquid rock and you need to soften your water up for killifish or something like that, there are guys that use peat moss to do that. Siglet23, they said the smoke out today was like smoking 6 cigarettes. Whew, whew. That tells you a lot. That tells you a lot. Mr. For sure. Hello. I tried to do something dumb and then I just slurred my words like an idiot, so. Hi. I'm still giggling about the tune in your stream. Instantly went and cleaned my air conditioner. I can't help it, man. Gives me a giggle. Novice Aquarist, I'm glad you've been liking my videos. Thank you, man. Especially the lighting ones. Those are... I put a lot of time in those, and I want to put time in a couple more of them, but I gotta do some stuff to do that. Scott Halperin saying he had the same experience with Val. Don't pay attention, and in a month or two, there will be like half a dozen runners. Yeah, I don't know what it is with Val. It's... yeah, I don't know. Trey, unrelated, the wine here is going to be smoky. It's that bad. Don't get 2020 white wines from Yak or Walla Walla. Well, maybe you want that smoky flavor in your wine. Kind of like an Elay Scotch, right? It's nice and tasting like campfire. Not squares. No offense. Yeah, no, I didn't think your comment was bad. It's just YouTube's auto filters, man. It's just what they do. Lots of hellos in chat. Good to see everybody saying hi to each other. Scott, have you bred barbs? I had one successful spawn with a pair of tiger bobs by accident. 3 fries survived. Now I'm trying and can't get them to go. I mean, they're a lot like most egg scatterers, right? Who I would look at is the same way that Lucas Bretz, so LRB Aquatics, spawns his mascara barbs. The way that he does that is a similar way that you can spawn tiger barbs. The other way that you can do it is like an old way that we used to spawn tetras. My brain just decided not to work for a moment. Where you do a layer of marbles at the bottom of a bare bottom tank, right? And you basically then put like you can put any kind of like filter cover on the top of it. Not filter floss, but like the light diffusing stuff, the egg crate. That's what I'm looking for. Egg crate. Put it over the top. Put your fish above it. Feed them really nice, especially give them like bloodworms and things like that. And when they spawn naturally, when they're happy and they spawn, they'll let out their eggs, and their eggs will fall into the marbles and stuff. They won't be able to get down to them to eat them, and then the eggs are safe. You leave them in there for a couple days of spawning, then pull them out and let the eggs hatch inside of that tank. It's kind of the two ways I can think of is the way that LR Bretz does it with his mascara barbs, or like kind of an old school method with marbles. Oh my god, I found Nemo. The Mario game remake that's coming out soon. Oh, possibly, like, I have not really had much time to play video games. The most that I do lately is a very small amount of Smash Brothers Ultimate with my lady, like, once every couple of days when I get home. We'll play for like 20 minutes right when I get home, just to kind of relax for a few minutes, and then I'll like go do chores around the house or do fish stuff or whatever the heck I need to do for the rest of the night. Or get dinner or whatever that is. So I don't know if my lady wants it, then yeah, of course I'll be buying it because she's got time to play stuff. A little bit more just because of how her life is, but I don't get a lot of time to play video games, and I do that by choice. That's fine. Like, but it depends. I have to look at it because, like, I mean, I have a Switch, so why not? I do like Mario. Pugamus, no longer Maximus. What's this? At Bentley, I received Boost Pink Lady today. I run a low-tech tank. What should I do? Depending on where you got it, which hopefully you got it from my friend Eric Lucas, because he does it a really nice way and he's got it pre-attached to media. Just let it sit, let it get a little bit of light, but not too much light. You want to like kind of have it vaguely shaded if you can. Just let it sit and get light. It'll be fine. It'll do just fine. It's a boost. It might have some adjustment period where it like gets all angry and melts a little bit due to your water, because it's not the water it came from. But other than that, just give it its time. It'll be fine. It'll do just fine. Don't worry about it. Mr. Fish, sir, how does equilibrium work? So, Seachem Equilibrium is the specific product we're talking about. Is basically a remineralizer. So a lot like salty shrimp, the GHKH plus. It's just a mineralizer. It's just adding a bunch of minerals to your water in order to bring the GH. I think equilibrium is specifically GH and not KH, but I'd have to check again to be absolutely certain. But basically all it's doing is adding minerals to the water. The same thing could be done, effectively speaking, with Wonder Shells, although equilibrium has dosing instructions and all that kind of stuff. For Wonder Shell, you're just kind of hucking one in and going, doing this, right? You can't get it quite as specific as you can with equilibrium, but it's basically just adding minerals to your water. It's pretty simple. It's just a mineral compound that is going to dissolve into the water, and the water system is just going to absorb it and get a little bit more hardness to it. Trey, my Bozeman Aves Creek are already full color, a little under 2 inches. Well, keep in mind, like Aves Creek and Chromsa Bozeman are a stream or river system type Bozeman, so they're going to stay naturally very small. They'll probably top out at 3 inches. Where like Ayamaru Bozeman come from the biggest lake that's out there. They get like 5.5 inches at truly full adult size. They get big. Where like the Itinjos only get like 3.5 to 4 inches. The Ooters are like, again, about 3.5 inches. So depending on where they're from, Bozeman all get different sizes. And that can matter as to how fast they develop their color. And certain bloodlines are a little more muddled. They've been in the hobby a lot longer. They've been raised in ponds, and things have happened during flooding. So, not all of them are like perfect. We're like closer to wild caught line, which like if you have Aves Creek, they're a lot closer to wild caught. They're going to color a lot faster. They're going to have more vibrant color to begin with. It's just, you're closer to nature as opposed to many generations away from nature. And it's all different. Like it depends on where they're caught from, the color, and the final color they get versus how fast they start getting color. Rainbows are weird. They're a very, very weird fish. Yeah. So Steven again, I have half 3 male, 3 female bull. Is it normal for just one male to have more vibrant coloration than the others? They aren't full grown yet. Got them as juveniles 7 months ago. Yeah, very normal. And part of that is its dominance thing. So the most dominant, the alpha male in the school, the shoal, whatever you want to call it, because they're not true schoolers, they're shoalers, right? True schoolers are those ones that like always have to be in a formation at all times. You tend to see more true schools in ocean fish, or tetras in very large numbers, and rainbows can do it in very large numbers too. But is it normal so like the more alpha males, and as you get to bigger numbers, so like if you had to say 30 fish, you'd probably have 3 or 4 males that were like all that kind of alpha male, and they'll be slightly more vibrant color than the rest because the rest are subdominant males, so they won't show as much color, because if they start showing more color, that's a dominance thing, and the alpha male will start sparring with them a whole lot, or potentially even harassing them. So like the way that rainbows harass each other, it's not super violent, but what they'll do is they'll keep bullying the fish away from the group to keep them away from the females, so that only the alpha male can be the one courting the females and trying to spawn. You'll see this a lot. Like my example, I'll look at my Blaharii tank in my living room, and this is just because they're afternoon spawners. I see this the most. There's like 4 males that each have a different spot in the tank, and they're the bosses, right? And the rest of the males in our tank just kind of all sit in a group together, just kind of like, yeah. And one male comes zipping out like, bully you out of my territory, even though they're not anywhere near where the male's trying to spawn. It's just what they do, right? And they just sit there, they're like, yeah, swim away. Okay, come back, hang out with the rest of the guys. Oh, no, yeah, you're scary. Oh, okay, hang out with the rest of the guys. So I bumped my mic. And, it's just, that's what rainbows do. They're crazy fish. This is what they do. Oh, chat jumped. That means I'm way behind. Let me try to speed in here a little bit. Joanna, yes, you were totally right. Rainbows are like wine. The older they get, the better. Jeff Chambers just asking a quick question. I want to answer this. And hi, JH Aquatics. What's up, buddy? And HC Aqua. Man, some OGs in this house. What's up? Why are Microsoft employees going into an office? So in particular, my project goes under extremely strict security requirements. Because of the work that I do, which is basically, I can't tell you, other than it is a mixed reality headset for the government. If you look up HoloLens Army, you can find all the public information that's out there, which is to say one small article from November 2019. But I'm doing a product for the Army, and because of that, it goes under extremely strict regulations. And because of the security requirements and the level of like top secret that the hardware has to be, we basically have to be on site. And it's a very small number of us. It's not the entire team. It's maybe 5% of the total work staff are actually on site. But the particular work that I do, the test side, we have to be interacting with the hardware. And because we have to interact with the hardware, we need to be on site in order to make sure that we follow all the security requirements, keep the hardware safe so that, one, we don't lose the contract with the Army, and two, none of the employees have any potential issues to where they could go under potentially even federal prosecution. So it's as much to protect the employees as it is to protect Microsoft. Now, like most of the developers and stuff, none of them are on site. They're all off site. It's basically just the test staff that are on site. It's a small team in comparison to the team as a whole. And like most of our bosses aren't even there. It's the guys that do all the actual test work. So an example, my What do we like to we nickname him the quality quality lead. Basically, because like you're creating quality in test is really what you're going for, and the nickname for our team is like the product quality team. Basically put, it's not the official name, but that's our kind of joke name, because every like standard communication that goes out there stresses quality, because this is something that's built to save soldiers' lives, right? What we're working on is designed to help protect our soldiers. So quality matters a lot, because quality literally is the difference between life and death if this project goes where it's supposed to go. So it's really important for us to be on site, because one, none of us want to get any of the very scary downsides that could happen to us individually should some of that get broken, and two, it's also just to make it simplistic, because there's so many regulations and so much specific stuff that has to be done to keep all of our development hardware and all this kind of stuff and prototypes under lock and key, that it's just easier to have us in a fairly nicely spaced out wing of a building that's under a crap load of security, and just make it simple that way. That's the real answer. Little dodge into my life. Okay, I'm gonna try and speed through chat real fast, so we're toward the end of the stream. Whew. Kelly Bender, lost 3 rainbow fish, suspect TB. There's a lot of ways to be able to see that, wounds that appeared overnight. It's a very likely case. Feel free to shoot me an email. It's bentley.pasco@gmail.com. I'll put it in chat for you. You are welcome to reach out to me. Anybody who has a question I didn't get to tonight, shoot me an email. It might take me 3 or 4 days to get to it, but I promise you I will respond. Just work is kind of crazy right now. I barely got home in time for the stream. But yeah. Shoot me an email, shoot me a couple pictures of what you're seeing, or just describe it really well, and I can probably tell you what's going on. If not, go to the Rainbow Fish Live group on Facebook. If you use Facebook, they're really, really great about giving fantastic information and helping out other rainbow hobbyists. Pogamus, man, thanks for the $10 thank you sticker, dude. That's really, really, really nice of you. And another, John with another one. Thank you very much for working on things like this. Hey, it's what I do. Like, if you mean specifically my work, I was really excited to join this project, because it's, I look at it as an opportunity not only to push a type of technology that I want to see go to regular people eventually in a very different form than it is now, but more importantly, an opportunity to use technology to save lives is something that just kind of feels good here, right? It plays at certain heartstrings. Like, I've got a lot of family that are former military, as far as like grandparents and stuff like that. So it's kind of there. Make sure I didn't miss any like super important things. Bentley Pasco, do you happen to know which kind Aquahuna sells? That's where I got mine. If you're talking about Val, it's almost guaranteed to be Italian Val. Oh, Bozeman, probably Ayamaru. They're most likely getting them from Florida Farm, which is commonly Ayamaru, but occasionally they'll get what they call a red Bozeman, and those are Outtages. Try to catch up chat. All right. There was one about an injury to a puffer. Your best bet, so if your puffer has an injured eye, just to kind of, probably be my last question. There might be one more question I answer, but your puffer with an injured eye, the first thing I would do is I would add a little bit of salt to your water. And the amount that I would look at is probably a teaspoon of salt per 10 gallons. And just monitor the health of the eye. If after 2 to 3 days you don't see some level of something that indicates healing, then what I would do is add a simple antibiotic. You could either use erythromycin if you have that. If you don't, you might look at something like either neomycin, so there's like Seachem's Neoplex, or kanamycin. If you can get these things, just a simple antibiotic to help make sure that something doesn't go worse with the fish. They will heal over time typically, unless it's a very serious injury. And fish can have only one eye and be okay. I mean, it's a little rougher on puffers because eyesight matters so much to puffers. but they can do it. So start with salt. A little bit of salt goes a long way, a really long way. Now, if you're already in brackish water and you already have a kind of high salt content, not pure fresh water, then we would want to just go straight to an antibiotic just to be safe. And what I would do is just, instead of like doing lots of water changes and multiple doses, do a single dose, let it sit in your water for a week, and just monitor your fish's health and just pay attention to that eye. If it looks like it's getting worse, I would either A, reach out to me via email, or B, reach out to Aquarium Co-op, store at aquariumcoop.com. They have a lot of experience with puffers, and it's the only reason why I'm sending you there. It helps a ton. And that can basically, they can probably steer you in a really, really good direction. But yeah, that's what I would look at as far as going that route with the puffers. Let me see. There's actually a question about the join link. I'll go grab it for you just in case, okay? I don't typically pimp my memberships too much, but if it's been asked for, I will specifically go find the link. There's I've actually like never had to hunt this thing down, so there it is. Found it. I had to go find it. If you do want to join and become a channel member, you get all sorts of things like emotes, and there's a little bit of preview content. There's a link that'll let you join the membership on the channel. There's a poll that's going to come up here very, very soon to the members and the couple of folks that are on Patreon for something in the future that they get to control. But don't worry, like, you guys all get your thing on it. But yeah, that will. There's one more question I wanted to answer. Just because it's simple. Fish and Shrimp by Rich. How deep is your typical planted tank? I would say that most planted tanks tend to be something between 16 and 24 inches deep, but they can be as short as 8 inches deep. It depends on the type of tank you're going for. Like, some of those really cool ADA shallow tanks are only like 8 to 12 inches, kind of like frag tanks are. But like something like a 40 breeder, 20 talls, a lot of that, those all tend to be about the 16 to 18 inch range is most common, I would say, for most of your planted tanks. It helps give you depth when they're that kind of, you have room to stack your substrate up and create the illusion of depth in a tank with that extra height. So that should cover it, other than some fantasy football stuff, which I'm going to put this out there. I'm playing, my last thing I'm going to say for that, and then I'm going to let you guys go. I believe Dr. Black is supposed to be, Dr. Black 66, that is supposed to be streaming tonight, which, go check him out. He should have started by now if he is. But I've been playing fantasy football with a small group of, like, Fish Fam, basically. We had a league last year. I think I took second place or third place. And this week, basically, Russell Wilson carried my entire team to a first round victory. Because several other people I had in played absolutely garbage. So, yeah. Thanks, Russ. All right, guys. As always, guys, thank you so much for showing up. For those that give super chats, like, you're awesome. You definitely don't have to. That's awesome. But Dr. Black just started. There we go. Let me very quickly get a link to his stream if you'd like to check him out. Of course, why is it like YouTube is so bad at searching out channels? Come on, man. Oh, sweet YouTube. Sweet YouTube. All right, there's a link to Dr. Black's channel. He's about to go live. But yeah, as always, guys, thank you so much for hanging out in chat. If you do have questions, again, feel free to email me, bentley.pasco@gmail.com. It might take me 3 or 4 days to answer them, but I will definitely answer every email I get. It just sometimes takes time because it's basically me finding time during my lunches at work or small amounts of free time when I get it, in order to like fire off responses. So if you like respond right away to something, you might not see a response until like the next day. Just keep that in mind. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching, and stay awesome. And stay safe if you're in all this smoke. good Lord, stay safe. Wear a mask, whatever you got to do. Stay safe. Take care. Yes, I'd like to end